today to talk a little bit about resume writing, which is super exciting, super fun, and how you want to spend a weekend for sure. I'm going to start. I want to begin by saying that if you're graduating in December, feel free to schedule appointments with me through the beginning of next year if you're looking for support on resumes. If you, by chance, are graduating in the spring, I meet with students through summer, resumes and cover letters as well. So if you need an individual appointment, I'm happy to help you. And then also we're going to talk a little bit about the impact that COVID has had on writing resumes, the interview process, and the job seeking process. So a resume and cover letter work together to gain the interest of a prospective employer. So you work off of both documents and they're independent, but they work together. So information you see in a resume isn't necessarily in a cover letter. It's not like a regurgitated resume. They should always target a very specific audience and describe your relevant skills and accomplishments that qualify you for the specific position. So this won't be a presentation that discusses like how you can use the same resume for several different positions. It will discuss ways to create an individual resume for a specific position and how you'll have to tailor your resume for a specific organization and job. I'm going to go through these. Okay. So when you are brainstorming or thinking about what you want to put in your resume, you want to think about a skill set that you believe belong in the resume and why. Spend some time. I have a worksheet that if you're interested in, I can send over to you, but spend some time thinking about what you want to put in your resume before you actually start writing it. And remember that this document is living, it will change, it will grow, you will remove things, add things throughout your professional career. So don't think of it as like a one and done kind of document. Ask yourself who you are, reflect on your professional life, your volunteer life, your accomplishments, academic accomplishments, community accomplishments. Ask yourself what populations and settings interest you, and this will help you decide what to include in your resume, what to emphasize, and the appropriate terminology. Before you even begin, be sure that you research the organizations where you'll be sending your resume, know their background, their websites, their social media presence, connect with Wayne State University School of Social Work alumni, learn about the organization's mission, their programs, populations served, and their theory base. All of this you'll discuss in your cover letter, and you'll highlight those things in your resume. You want to create a main list, kind of an ongoing list of things, of your experiences and your skills, including your education, your certifications, licensing, field placements, internships, volunteer positions, trainings attended and presentations given, research areas, professional activities like conferences, memberships, and also language skills are really important as well. There are some arguments against placing information such as your computer skills or your personal interests and travel on a professional resume, but also know the position for which you are applying and know the necessary skills. So for example, if you are interested in the arts, those are personal interests and activities. But if you are an art therapist and use art in your therapy, that's going to be an important component. So be sure that you add those things in a resume. Always list in reverse chronological order from present to past. Employers are going to be most familiar with this format. So consistency is really important here. When you are creating headings to emphasize your relevant skills and experiences, you want consistent font, consistent size, placement of all of those headings. Clinical focused resumes typically begin with education and may be followed by social work or clinical experience. Other background could be named additional experience or something more specific, such as teaching or research. And again, make sure it's tailored to you. For macro level positions, headings that may be more appropriate include human service experience, community outreach experience, or in some cases, administrative experience. This is a tough one for some people to hear, but avoid using templates. They are very difficult to edit. Sometimes they only allow for a certain amount of information. Modifying them is, challenging, and they may seem like a smart shortcut, but in the end, it might not reflect your unique skills, and you might be spending more time trying to edit it than you really want to. Be sure to use action verb phrases instead of sentences, so do not use personal pronouns, and an a, and the to achieve a concise style that will be easier and faster for an employer to read. Try not to refer to yourself in the third person. We want to avoid personal pronouns in the resume, but you can go ahead and use them in your cover letter. Resume language should be short, concise, so very clear and to the point. Long explanations at that point aren't really needed. Those discussions usually happen in the cover letter, hence why they work together. Use keywords and details that are appropriate to your audience. So for clinical positions, you may want to include client populations, diagnoses, presenting issues, age, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, unless certain your reader is aware of this information. For macro level positions, you want to stress skill levels such as supervising others, program development, community organizing, perhaps fundraising, grant writing, and budget management. Here, it's really important, and even with clinical positions, to be quantitative. Make sure you use numbers. The number of people you've supervised, the amount of money you've raised is always very important in resumes. Stress accomplishments and sequence phrases according to the skills most relevant to your reader. So that might switch depending on the position. You may want to emphasize other things for one job and some other skills for a different position. So in terms of resume sections, obviously your contact information, I have here your address, but actually we suggest to no longer put a mailing address in a resume. They really only need to reach you by phone or email. At this point, no one has to know where you live. So we can go ahead and delete that. If you do have a LinkedIn profile, you can also put that in the heading. So name, email, phone number, and perhaps a link to LinkedIn. Again, it depends on how comfortable you are with a social media presence. But if you are comfortable with one, create a LinkedIn account, because that is something that could also add some value to your resume. A skills profile, this may be used at the opening of your resume. We could also call it a professional profile. Here, we're not really talking about our objective. I think our objective is to find employment. So here we really want to highlight our strongest skills and the skills that we would need in this particular position. So I would start a resume with that most of the time. For education, that usually comes second after the skills profile. And that is typically what we would see for recent grads. So begin with your social work degree, followed by all of your previous degrees. You may include things like relevant courses, community projects, and committee work as well. In your skills section, you can go ahead and start discussing your foreign language proficiency if you have any, your computer skills if they're applicable, progress toward licensure may be included under education. Sometimes I like to see foreign language proficiency in the professional profile. Again, it depends on the position and the strength of the language proficiency as well. Next comes experience. So those should be chosen according to the type of position you are seeking, state specifics of your field placement, especially for clinical resumes, include volunteer work or internships. And then relevant memberships like the NASW, any awards, trainings, conferences, and presentations given are always included. Your resume's presentation will depend on your audience and experience. So it will be different for everybody, and that's okay. Everybody comes with a different set of skills, different sets of experience, different levels of experience, and that's completely fine. We can work with pretty much anything. If you can fit your resume on a page without crowding it, do so, but it's really common 2 to 3 page resumes, particularly for MSWs, clinical positions, or if you have significant experience. Again, we really emphasize the consistent formatting. Formatting is very important in a resume. It can't look too crowded. Your headings have to be consistent, your font use, your spacing, your use of caps, bullets, italics. It all has to be consistent. Typically, what's acceptable in resumes right now are the fonts Times New Roman, Arial, and Helvetica. Nothing fancy, no photos, no like crazy graphics, and we usually use an 11 or 12 point font. It's really important, I can't emphasize this enough, to proofread your resume. It's a direct reflection of you. And if you're emailing a resume and cover letter with grammatical errors, that's the first thing a person sees on the other side, like in a hiring department. And certainly that is not what you want to convey when you're applying for a job. So be sure to check your grammar, sentence structure, spacing, and be sure you're muted because I hear some background information or some background noise. And you also want to send the resume to yourself or to a family member to see how it opens as a document. So sometimes I recommend sending them as PDFs. Depending on where you're applying or how you're uploading the document, you may not be able to use a PDF. You may have to use a Word document, but try testing out the document first before sending it, because you don't want someone opening like a garbled document. So applicant tracking software is sort of what we were talking about before, sort of leads into this, is software that larger organizations use to sort of sort, scan, and collect applications. They use certain keywords that they're looking for in an application. And if they handle large volumes of resumes, typically they would use this software. So it's scanning specific words to see if the resume should be passed along to the hiring manager. Smaller agencies and organizations are not as likely to rely on this, but this is why sometimes they can't read PDF documents, and sometimes that's why we don't want to use those. So you have to kind of know how you're going to be delivering your resume before you actually save it as a PDF or as a Word document. So if you're applying to a larger organization, assuming they're using this software, we want to be sure that we're not using any fancy templates because the scanning software won't pick it up. Be sure to include the key language that is found in the job description for which you are applying. Do not add graphics of any kind, and be sure that you're uploading in the compatible format that they're accepting. So don't force a specific document type just because that's how you've written it. So this is an example of a resume that heavily depends on experience. Very simple. You'll notice the name. This does include an address. We don't have to add ours. It does have a LinkedIn. We have our education and our proficiencies listed on top. So our licensure, language proficiencies, computer skills, and then it heavily depends on this individual's work experience. So this person was an intern and then went on to be a group facilitator, a mental health worker, group leader, and then discusses trainings and conferences this individual attended, their professional affiliations, And because this individual uses his personal interests in his work, his interests are applicable in this resume. This is a skills-based resume. So this individual has been in the field for 15 years. So we're summarizing the skill sets and then going right into their professional background and accomplishments. And we're minimizing their education because it's not as important right now. This is for someone who might be mid-career, late career. This individual has broken down the professional background by clinical experience, academic and instruction experience, and private practice. This one focuses more on education, which is likely where you'll be. This one has an objective. I'd use a professional profile, list our education, and then all of our academic information, and then our computer skills, community service, academic achievements, and whatnot. Moving on to cover letters. So a cover letter is not a place where we discuss everything that we've written in a resume. It's where we highlight a couple of things. It states why we're applying, how maybe we heard about the position, and the most relevant skills and experiences are highlighted here. They don't repeat the resume. They show how you and the position and the organization all fit together. So it's your job to make a case for why you fit within this organization and within this position. And always use a cover letter. Research the organization and position before submitting anything. Explore the website and talk with someone you may know within that organization if possible. And if you've been referred, you may mention their name with permission on the cover letter. If you are applying for a position with very little description, it is appropriate for you to reach out to that organization to gather further information, but be prepared because you don't necessarily know who you'll be speaking with. So be sure you use your most professional language and put your most professional foot forward. Always address the letter to the person by name if you have that information. It's also appropriate to say to whom it may concern, or if it's a search committee, you may address them. I like using business letter format, which is a full block format. If you have questions on what that is, everything's sort of aligned on the left margin, and I'd be happy to work with you on this and learning more about different letter formats. Always write in the active voice. So instead of saying my field placement at Cass Community Services afforded me the opportunity to, we would say during my placement at Cass Community Services, I provided individual psychotherapy to adolescent substance abuse patients. So we're highlighting what we did, and we're putting an active voice in our sentence. Instead of saying, I would be honored to work at your agency, I would say, I would bring strong clinical and administrative skills to your agency. So again, highlighting your skills, being very specific, being very concise. Again, try to keep this at a page. The only way I'd see this going longer is if you were applying for an academic position for research or fellowship. In general, you want this to be a page and keep your paragraphs on the shorter side. Always carve out a path for an interview, so end your letter with the next step. It's appropriate to say, we'll contact you next week to schedule a convenient time to meet. You may also offer the best way to contact you and mention that you look forward to hearing from the employer. Be sure to include your letter as a second attachment. And again, this might depend on how the website's accepting information. So note that before you commit to a particular format. So you might have to go PDF, you might have to go Word. In the body of the email, just be brief. You know, dear so-and-so, I am writing to apply for the clinician position advertised on your website. I will be receiving my MSW from Wayne State University this August and would bring strong clinical skills and experience with at-risk youth to the position. So just being very short and sweet in the body of the email. This is an example of a cover letter. It's long, and once you receive this PowerPoint, you can read it. But essentially what I'm doing in the first paragraph is I'm introducing the individual. I will be earning my MSW from the Wayne State University School of Social Work, and would bring to this opportunity strong clinical skills working with at-risk youth in therapeutic schools, and experience in environmental education and leadership training. So right off the bat, you're trying to sell your skills. And then in the next 2 to 3 paragraphs, we're spending time pulling our skills, how we've used those skills, and how these skills would best fit in the organization and in the position. And we do that by highlighting the mission of the organization we're interested in, by highlighting the skills needed for the position, which is very important. And then I end carving a path forward. Very short, very sweet, very organized. I call this like a little recipe, and I use this recipe for most cover letters. References should typically appear on a separate sheet of paper. Be sure to include the name, title, address, phone, and email for each. Again, the home address, not necessarily important in this case, just contact information is more critical. Add the relationship to you. Choose references you feel will speak highly of you and your work abilities. So it could be a field supervisor, former employer. They should speak about your thoughts and their thoughts on your strengths for your new employer, your qualifications for the position, and therefore try to use references in the human service field if possible. You should ask your references what they are prepared to say about you prior. Current references, people with whom you have very recent contact with, are going to be your best choices here. And many prospective employers will want to talk with your references by phone, so be sure you've received permission to list them. So here we talk a little bit about employment gaps, which frankly, right now is pretty normal. It has been even pre-COVID. You're not alone if you have an employment gap in your resume. There are lots and lots of reasons why a gap could appear. You know, more and more individuals are caring for family members, parents, partners, children. You know, in terms of illness, caring for family, they're leaving positions for educational reasons and then returning. Obviously, COVID-19 has presented job seekers new challenges, but again, gaps have been common. So we want to just be transparent about it. Try not to hide it. So many transitioned to remote work in 2020, which means a productive employee has evolved, and what that means has evolved. I like the professional profile idea at the beginning of a resume because we can include the skills that most fit with that job description, whether we're remote or in person. If we have more significant gaps, we can always highlight our volunteer and community service and the professional development opportunities we've taken during that time. You want to prepare yourself to discuss it because they may want to know the reason for the gap. If you took time for education or caregiving responsibilities, be forthright, explain the reason why the gap has now been resolved. If there was downsizing in an organization, you may discuss that, obviously with disrespecting the company. Be brief and transparent. And consider a skills-based resume. Maybe we don't want to highlight where we've worked right now, and we want to save that for like the latter part of the resume. And we want to highlight the skills and move those to the top. So those skills, I think, at the top, followed by your employment history, is perfectly appropriate. So at the end of this process, you want to do a checklist, make sure you've done everything you can do for a perfect resume and cover letter. Be sure that you've used phrases beginning with action verbs. Use language that creates a clear picture of yourself and your skill set for your employees or for prospective employers. Keep your descriptions brief, but give a picture of the populations you have served, the social, medical, and psychological issues with which you have worked, and the social work skills you've practiced. Include issues that you've dealt with and that would be of value to you in your new setting. Use quantities, amounts, and dollar values whenever possible. Always use professional language. Be consistent with the use of all formatting, bold, underlining, capitalizing, and send a cover letter with your resume. Please do not use personal pronouns. You don't need to include any personal data. We don't want to include photos, listing street addresses. Definitely avoid all grammatical errors. Don't send a resume in without a cover letter. This WAMS link has to be revised, but you may reach out to me at my email address, ac8153@wayne.edu, if you'd like to schedule an appointment or you'd like more information on writing a resume and or cover letter. That is it for me. Any questions?
Going once, going twice. Any questions for Ms. Vanessa? Thank you, Ms. Vanessa, for that awesome presentation. I would like to say, speaking again to the references, as you guys are working on your advanced standing applications for MSW, reaching out to the people who you want to be your references, just make sure that these people are supportive of your education. We have received references that were not supportive. So make sure that these people know who you are, know what you're about, know what you want to do, and is strongly supporting you as you move forward into this higher education. So having said that, we are moving on to our next presentation, and it is on student loan debt. We have Ms. Daisy from Financial Aid, and we have our new own Ms. Randy, who is our new ASO2 in the Office of Field Education. I'm not sure which one of you guys want to go first. Ms. Daisy, you gonna go first?
If you like me to, I'm ready. Let
Ms.
me.
Daisy, I'm always ready for you, Ms. Daisy. You guys, Ms. Daisy is awesome. Give her your full undivided attention. Ms. Daisy, take it away.
Thank you. You guys are the best. Let me try to share my screen here. If it gets a little weird, let me know, okay? Let's see here. Oh, it says that I can't share my screen. I can't hear you.
Jeffrey,
Sorry, I was on mute. Are you?
You have my presentation. If you want to run it, just move it for me. You have it, or I can share. However, did you? Because it says the host has not given me permission.
You have it now.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Okay, let me try this again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, I'm just gonna move on to the next slide. The title's a little weird, but because I use that whenever I talk to adult learners, meaning they're not, freshman students coming in, but this is good for anyone coming to Wayne State University. All right, and I know that all of you know all about the FAFSA, filing for financial aid, loans, and things like that mostly, but it's always good to tie everything together, a nice little package, and remind everybody what things need to be done or you need to know after graduation, right? And just to start thinking about that moment, because you're all going to graduate and you're all will eventually have to deal with paying those loans back. Okay, so that's why the title is such. All right, we're going to talk a little bit here today about loan limits. loan eligibility, repayment options, loan consolidation, forbearance of the loans, loan forgiveness, that's a big one, and then some key takeaways, and then Q&A. And if I forget something during that presentation, please, you can put the questions on the chat, and maybe somebody can remind me so I can answer those questions. And if somebody can do me a favor and put my contact information on the chat, I would appreciate it, please, Lawrence or Jeffrey or Naila, somebody, because the contact information at the end of the presentation is the general one, and I always like to give my personal presentation, my personal contact in case the students need me. I want to be able to be there via phone call or email. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's get started. We all understand that college is an investment. This is we beat this dead horse, pardon the pun, over and over. We all know, because an investment is something that you can earn something if you have it, okay? And I always just use the example, if I have buy an iron to iron my own clothes, that's not an investment. But if I buy an iron to iron for other folks who are paying me, that iron is an investment, okay? So I'm getting something out of that. I'm getting money, making money with that, whatever it is I have. Education is the same thing, all right? So when we go into a program knowing that we have to borrow because we don't have thousands of dollars to pay for this program, we all understand that eventually, you got to pay the piper, and you're going to pay these loans back, and you do whatever you do, but it's still an investment. And remember, everybody, a diploma is forever, forever. No one can take that away from you. So even though it's a pain in the neck, you have to pay the loans back, and we all, hee-haw, got to pay. But it's amazing because at least you have an opportunity to grow and to really serve people and to do what you love to do. So every year, after you complete the free application for federal aid, which you do complete every single year, October 1st, the state has its own deadline. Wayne State has December, but we like when the students complete the form as soon as it's available, which is October 1st of every year. So for 22-23, everybody's FAFSA should have already been completed, unless you're graduating. If you're graduating, then you're not coming back or not going anyplace else for further, studies, then you don't have to file the form. But we want to make sure that that form is completed. And we all know that the loans, like I said before, unlike grants and scholarships, we have to pay those back. So we always in our office encourage all of our students to please borrow wisely. Borrow wisely and know exactly how much you have borrowed. And that's easy to do. I'm going to show you how to manage and own your own loans, and the loan servicer and the lender and all that good information. This is really important. Those are the tools of your trade right now. Even though you may be working part-time or doing something, the tools of the trade right now is for you to own and manage your education. The academic side is great. You're all smart. You're good. That's okay. It's the financial aid side that sometimes concerns me a little bit, when students don't know who their servicer is or what to do if an emergency occurs that you have to stop attending classes. Now, the annual lifetime limits are set by the Department of Education, who gives us the money to lend out to the students. You know that old saying, whoever writes the golden rule, whoever owns the gold can write the golden rule. In my opinion, for a graduate student or even undergrad, who has to take all these credits, more than 120 when they're done, the amount of money that we're lending them, the Department of Education, sometimes is not enough. So graduate students, for instance, have to borrow graduate loans, which is another burden. So there is a limit for freshmen, of course. It's $5,500. It could be $3,500 in subsidized and $2,000 or $6,000 in unsubsidized if you're a first-year student. For a sophomore is $6,500. For juniors and seniors, $7,500. The lifetime limit for a student who is dependent, meaning he or she is not 24, they don't have a child they support, they're not married, they're not awards of the court, and they're not in the military, their maximum is $31,000 for 4 years. And the government hopes that that $31,000 will be enough to cover all their expenses while they're undergraduate students. When they're dependent students, when they become independent, the funds increase. Then the independent students are eligible to receive $12,500 when they are juniors and seniors, for a maximum of $57,500. And I have to tell you, sometimes $57,500 is a lot of money, and sometimes that's not even enough, because a lot of people who attend college can't work full time, so they're depending on these funds to be able to live. But there is a limit, and once people run out of this limit, it becomes nasty. If you're a dependent student undergraduate and you have borrowed the $31,000, that means that you have to ask your parents to borrow a Parent Plus loan. Parent Plus loans are okay. They're not my favorite, and I do not recommend them, just like I don't like to recommend alternative loans when it is an independent student who has 1 semester left and they have borrowed $57,500 and there's no place to go. Our office doesn't have enough money and this and that. And then you have to go outside of the federal government, go to a credit union or your bank to borrow more. But all those loans have to be paid. So please, please, please borrow wisely. Borrow exactly what you need. And you have to also remember for spring, summer, if you use all of your loan eligibility between fall and winter, there is nothing else for spring, summer as far as loans, okay? So that's another situation that people need to be very wary of. You need money for spring, summer, because you may have to start spring, summer. And if you have used all of your aid at another school or at Wayne, and you have to start this program during the spring, summer semester, and you don't have any funding, that is a real heartache and it's a pain. So the best thing is always to call, is to call our office to make sure that you have enough funding. What I do is do like a projection for 4 years if you're an undergrad, or a projection for 2 years, if you're a grad student or doing the accelerated program. Or it's always good to project, always adding the 3 to 5% that the university is going to increase every single year in tuition charges. So if we at least can have some type of control and knowledge of what we need and the money that we have, it just makes us feel better and take this medicine a little bit better when you know what's going on. Now, how do you find out how much you owe, what your grant eligibility is, and who is your servicer? This is wonderful link here, the National National Database. That's where you find everything. You can find your enrollment information, subsidized usage, how much you have used, your contact information, exit counseling when you graduate. They have a ton of questions that you may have that they already have ready answers for, and how to contact the Department of Education. So this link here, HTTPS, NSLD, SFAP, et cetera, is you have to have this, because when you visit this link, it tells you everything about your loans that you ever wanted to know. And this is really important to know. You need to check this at least once per semester to make sure that our office is not making mistakes, or the federal government is not making mistakes. And, loan servicers are human too, like we are. They make mistakes, big ones, whoppers, that cost students a lot of money, and then it costs a lot to undo what they've done. So please keep this one in mind. When does repayment start? When a student stops attending school for more than 6 months, okay, you have a 6-month grace period. If you are out of school more than 6 months, the Department of Education is going to tell you to complete exit counseling and or begin choosing a repayment to pay your repayment plan to pay your loans back. Okay. If you do not complete exit loan counseling, which is a federal requirement, the Department of Education will put you in the standard plan, which is 10 years to pay the loans back, and it's a set amount every year. So if you owe $57,500 and you do not complete exit loan counseling and you do not choose your own plan, we have a variety of plans, like 6 of them. They're going to put you in the standard plan, which is for 10 years, you'll get those loans paid up, but the payments could be over $1,000 a month if you owe $57,500. So it behooves everybody when you're graduating or falling below the 6 months, please complete exit counseling. And then we're going to talk about programs that will help you if you need help making the payments for your loans. This is not, the government is not that heartless. You know, they know especially now there's a pandemic. And right now, all the interests are frozen until January, I think it's January 31st. Okay, so no one is paying interest, whether it's subsidized loan, which we don't pay interest on, or the unsubsidized loan. So that's right now you're paying no interest. But let's say that you decide not to complete that exit counseling, forget it. They're going to throw you into that standard pay and send you a bill. And then you're going to say, what the heck is this? I didn't ask for anything at this point, but it's because you haven't done exit counseling and told the Department of Education what plan, repayment plan you want, okay? Let's talk a little bit about consolidation. Should I consolidate my loans? Everybody, every one of you, once you graduate or before that, you're going to receive phone calls, emails from companies that will give you or tell you that the world is yours if you consolidate your loans. Well, you cannot jump into those shark-infested waters just like that. You have to know exactly what consolidation means and why you should consolidate. This is really important, okay? So that link that I put out there is amazing. Please, please use it. Go in there if you're thinking about consolidating any of your loans. Of course, nobody's going to consolidate loans right now, unless you have a defaulted loan that you need to take care of. No one should be consolidating loans while you're in school. You will learn what potential monthly payments could be, the best repayment plan for you, how long it takes to repay your loans, the type of loans you're eligible to consolidate, because they're not all eligible to be consolidated. For instance, we can't do any alternative loans or any private loans, and how the interest is accumulated. The people, the students who know how interest works can avoid many, many, many pitfalls. That's what kills us in these loans. It's the interest. It's not that high. It's 3.43 right now for both loans, subsidized or unsubsidized, 4.3 for graduate students, but it's still interest. It's money that you're giving away in addition to the principal that you have borrowed. Now, if you have federal loans right now that are with different loan servicers, you still do not want to consolidate right now. This is upon graduation or after you do exit counseling and all of that. You may want to, for the simplicity of having one monthly bill, you can consolidate both unsubsidized and subsidized loans into one, bill, and that's great. If you have a Perkins loan, you never ever consolidate your Perkins loan with your other direct loans. It'll turn that loan into an unsubsidized loan. You don't need that. The Perkins loans, we don't lend those any longer. The government does not. It's a set amount, $50 a month for as long as, 10 years or whatever. So it's a comfortable payment plan. Never consolidate a Perkins loan, okay? Well, there's one exception we'll talk about in a minute. When you consolidate a loan, it will definitely lower your monthly payments, but it could take up to 30 years to repay your loans, which means that in the long run, if you do the math, you're going to be paying a lot more than you borrowed. We're already doing that because of the interest. So please be cautious. Don't listen to just these people calling you and telling you, you need to consolidate. And peer counseling doesn't work with financial aid. So, consult the financial or somebody from the financial aid office. Call your servicer. They're a wonderful source of information for loan consolidation. So if you consolidate loans other than direct loans, now here's the one caveat that we have. If you're applying for the public service loan forgiveness, which I'm sure most, if not all of you will do, you will, if you have loans that are from the federal education program, we call them FEL loans, those need to be consolidated to the direct loan, to the direct loans that you have at this point. But that's because you're going to apply for the public service loan forgiveness program. Unless you're, if you're not going to apply for this program, do not. Just leave things alone and then make your payments, choose the best plan that you can. Be careful with consolidation. But we're going to talk about the public service loan forgiveness in a minute. Consolidation usually increases the period of time you have to repay your loans because they consolidate the loans so that you pay less. And some people find that really comfortable. They can pay their loans that way. Everything is good. But you will likely make more payments and pay more in interest than would be the case if you didn't consolidate. So when you consolidate your loans, any outstanding interest on the loans that you consolidated is part of the principal. And that inflates the number by many digits. So be careful. You want to see this in black and white where you know exactly what you're going to be paying at the end of a consolidation. And consolidation may also cause you to lose certain borrower benefits, such as interest rate discounts, principal rebates, or some loan cancellation benefits that are associated with your current loans. Be careful. Make sure that you know all of this before you decide to consolidate. Now, what about loan forbearance? Look, consolidation is great when you need it to clear up a default or other things. Same thing with loan forbearance. The loan forbearance is a period during which your monthly loan payments are temporarily suspended or reduced. You may have to pay the interest, but it's like nothing, like $3 or $4, $5 a month. So here's a wonderful link again that you all can use and take a look and read about loan forbearance. And it'll tell you how to apply for loan forbearance, the interest capitalization, meaning how much interest you're going to pay after this is all done. And then it's also going to help you, this link, to find a plan that is best for you because it temporarily reduces or eliminates your payments. You want to find the right plan. Now, forbearance is wonderful when life happens, especially now. I have so many students in forbearance right now because of the pandemic. But we also have military forbearance. We have financial stress forbearance. We have all kinds of things. How do you find this? First of all, check with your servicer using that other NSLDS website that I gave you. And then use this link to see how best this fits your situation. It's a great way to temporarily help you get back on your feet. All right, here are the pros and cons of, it's always, pros and there's always cons with everything. Okay, so here are the good things. Better than garnishment or default. When you default on a loan, it's a horrible experience. You don't want to do that. It messes up your credit rating. It just does all kinds of crazy things. Garnishing your wages, the government doesn't look twice. They're going to garnish your wages. If you owe them, that's it. They're going for the jugular because they figure we lend you this money under good faith and you don't want to pay it back. It's not that we don't want to pay it back. It's that life happens and we have situations and emergencies. And sometimes we forget to call our servicer to say, look, I've had an awful emergency in my life and this is what it is. You may have to disclose some details, but what else can we do? You want to take advantage of these things, you have to kind of disclose what's happening in your life at a particular time. Okay. Now, it also lowers the interest, on any personal loan. It allows breathing room for you to pay critical expenses, just like I said. And it has no impact on your credit score. Forbearance does not impact your credit score. But here are the bad things. It's not a long-term solution. Okay, so this is a Band-Aid. It's a good Band-Aid. It's a pretty big Band-Aid to stop the bleeding somewhere, but it's not a long-term solution. Eventually, we're gonna have to have surgery to stop that bleeding. Capitalization of accrued interest is expensive. That means that all of the interests are all put together and the number may be really huge. It's a scary number. If you consolidate, let's say things happen, you apply for forbearance one academic year for, let's say, 21, 22, September through next May, you apply and receive a forbearance, okay? Fantastic, that's cool with the world, we're good. But then something else happens that's not a military deferment or, forbearance or something like that. Then you apply for it again and the government, oh, it's okay, we're gonna let you have this again. The third time though, they start making noises because then they're saying, what's going on here? We need to talk to the student. So if you want to apply for forbearance on the second time, please contact our office or call your servicer and ask what adverse consequences are going to take place if I do this another time. They'll tell you. You know, it's better to know bad news than not to know anything and get hit with bad news. And when it comes to finances, sometimes people don't tell us things because we don't even know what to ask. So be aware of what you're asking and what you want before you ask for forbearance, but it's there for your use. And please don't forget that it is there for your use. And it doesn't mean that you can still attend school and your loans will be deferred, but those deferred loans will be put in forbearance for a time. Let's talk a little bit about, okay, forbearance provides temporary breathing room. We talked about that, okay? And it will allow you to pay some essential expenses that you may have or emergencies, which is great. But it could also be costly. It's not a long-term solution. So it's there to help, like a Band-Aid, but you don't want to walk around with a Band-Aid for the rest of your life. What happens with people who sometimes, or students who do loan or who request loan forbearance, is that their loans eventually go into default. And you don't want that. It'll destroy your credit score. Okay. Forbearance is noted on your credit report, and it does result in a lower credit score if you don't make your payments. But if you make your payments normally and you pay the interest and everything is good, you should be fine. And you want to avoid any unnecessary expenses during and following forbearance. Keep making your payments while your application is being processed. Getting out of forbearance as soon as you're financially able to do so is the best and the smartest thing you can do. But again, the program is there for any of us who may need it at a time when we need to, when we can't pay this person or this company, but we have to pay this other thing. And you need a car to get to school, you need to pay your mortgage, you need to pay your rent. So those are expenses that you really need to take care of. The government, your servicer will be very understanding, and they will make sure that that all of your questions are answered. Nobody in the Department of Education wants you or any student, not you, but any student to default on a loan. That's what they're trying to prevent. This is kind of to prevent that path, because none of us want to go there. The bottom line is forbearance is almost always a last resort. It's a last resort, not a first option. So use it if you need to temporary relief, the situation that's happening in your life right now, okay? But for long-term problems, please consider an income-driven repayment. We're going to talk about that, because when you do an income-driven repayment, the payments of any of your loans will depend on how much money you're earning. So this forbearance is only temporary, okay? So if possible, pay the interest as it accrues to avoid paying interest on interest when you do resume paying your loans. So if you have a forbearance, And you have to, they say, okay, you don't have to pay the interest. It would be wiser for you to pay $10, $20, whatever you can afford. But if you can't afford it, that's fine too. That's fine. They don't force people to do that. Now, if you begin to experience financial trouble, please talk to your loan servicer. I cannot repeat this thing more than 1,000 times, because that's when we get in trouble with our loans, when the servicer is totally blind or deaf, or they don't want to, you don't tell them anything. Then when something occurs or you want to come back to school and this has not been settled, it's really an awful, awful process. So make sure that you keep your lender, involved in any life situation that may occur. All right, loan forgiveness. Oh, loan forgiveness. This term, students, the loan forgiveness is used a little bit interchangeably with for forbearance, but they're two different animals here. Forgiveness is available for different types of loans, including direct and Perkins loans. This is a whole different ballgame. However, loan forgiveness, okay, is when somebody is physically unable to work and earn money to pay their loans back. It's a huge and long process where you have to submit a ton of paperwork. What the government does is forgive all your loans. You can have $100,000 in debt, in student loans. They will forgive that. But, you have to let them know, I can't work anymore. And I can't pay these loans because I can't work. And we have many, 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 many students who have applied for forgiveness of their loans and continue to attend school. They just cannot work, okay? They just can't work. Now, we have some other students who have received loan forgiveness or discharges, and then they decide to borrow again. The problem with that is that when you do this, you get your loans forgiven or discharged, and then you borrow again, the new loans can never be forgiven or discharged again. They can be forgiven through the public service loan forgiveness, okay? But not through, going back because I can't work anymore. The government won't do that. Or many students they have to hire lawyers to say, wait a second, I can't work. Look, this is my report from my doctor. I need to apply for a loan forgiveness or loan discharge, and I need to do this because I can't work. But it's a long, drawn out process. So before you do anything like that, the best loan forgiveness is the public service loan forgiveness. It's clean. It takes a long time. You have to make 120 payments, but it's a clean break, and the loans will officially be forgiven. Loan forgiveness releases a borrower from their obligation to repay part or all of their federal student loan debt. There's the link. Please take time to go there and take a look, especially with social workers. You are fully 1,000% eligible to do this, okay? So don't miss out this chance. It's a lot of paperwork too, and it takes a long time, and you still have to make those payments, but at the end of the payments, your loans will be, what's remaining, they will be forgiven. The difference between loan forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge. There's a difference among these three programs. When you go to that website, you will see the difference. Different types of loan forgiveness programs for everybody. And what are the requirements to qualify? They vary depending on the type of loan and your occupation, and then tells you how to apply. Loan forgiveness is, again, excellent for people who are in the public service, in the public, like agencies, nonprofit agencies, people who work at Wayne State, places like that. Loan cancellation that's where they cancel all of your loans, and that's more like a loan discharge. And the same thing, loan cancellation, loan discharge are pretty much, very much, they look very much alike. Okay, so when you go to this website, it'll tell you the differences that exist among these three programs. All right, one important notes about loan forgiveness. Only federal direct loans qualify for loan forgiveness. You cannot put those private loans as part of the program. Loan forgiveness can be earned by working in public service or making payments through an income contingent payment plan for a period of time. When you do exit loan counseling, you're going to choose a payment plan. The income contingent payment plan is one of those. Federal loans may also be discharged under circumstances beyond the borrower's control, such as disability or the closing of the school. Here's the kicker here. If you are attending a for-profit school and you have all these loans and the school has closed, automatically those loans are totally closed or discharged because the school has been closed. You know, so that degree means nothing now. So, you know, you borrow loans for something that's not going to help you. It's not investment. It is an investment of time and study. That's the way I look at it. But at least you don't have to pay those loans back. That's a cancellation. Forbearance is a temporary situation that in your life that occurs, and you're going to ask to have your loans put on hold for a minute. Okay? And the total discharge is based on disability. Key takeaways: both Pell Grant and federal loans have limits. Know how much you want to have left so you can academically plan accordingly. That's what I said at the beginning of this presentation. Loan information can be confusing. Ask questions when you need to, please. You know, there seems to be a mindset out there that students work for financial aid folks. It's not that way. We work for you. That's how it is. So when you find someone who's not very kind or who, you know, gives you kind of a bad feeling that you're disturbing my day, in the financial aid world, that is not, you have to remind us once in a while that we work for you. You do not work for us. You're paying our mortgages, you're paying our salaries. So you have the right to ask all kinds of questions whenever you want to. So keep that in mind. You want to contact your lender often, please, especially if you're experiencing trouble with your finances. Okay. Now, that was pretty fast because I didn't have a lot of time, which is fine. Are there any questions? Did I leave anything out? Jeffrey, Naila, did I leave anything out?
No, ma'am, but we did have one question in the chat.
Okay.
Somebody's about to say something. Was that Naila?
Oh, I was just saying no.
Oh, okay. So the question was, can you change plans later after already selecting one plan?
Absolutely. Nothing with the Department of Education and your tax dollars is set on stone when it comes to these plans. You can change them anytime you want. Anytime you want. And by the way, you just call your servicer and say, wait a minute, I don't want this one, I want that one. They'll do it automatically. One more thing I forgot to tell you. If something occurs in your life, you know, we have special circumstances appeals. You have to let us know. When I filed the FAFSA back in October or whenever, I was making $200,000. I didn't need you people, but I need you now. So here's my appeal, and this is why. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, we change all of the numbers, and some of the undergraduate students end up with Pell Grants. Please contact our office if you have some trouble with anything financial during the pandemic, or if it's not pandemic related. We're here to help. Please contact our office and email me. Okay? Email me and always add your access ID so I can find you quick and assist you with whatever you need. That's why we're here.
We have another question in the chat, Ms. Daisy. It says,
Yes.
for the loan forgiveness, is it income-based?
The loan forgiveness, no, you have to choose, well, the income contingent plan, because what they want to see is if your income goes up, do we raise the payments a month? Or if your income goes down, we have to lower the payments. So they will tell you exactly what payment plan to choose. They'll walk you through the whole process because it's their process and they want you to have those loans forgiven eventually. So, but it has to be contingent on the income, yes. Mm-hmm.
And we have another question. If they are financially able, Do you recommend the graduated person to pick a shorter payment plan to pay it off faster? Just want to hear your opinion on that.
All right, my opinion is the following. I see, but the problem with this question is that if I want to pay my loans as soon as possible, so I would choose the standard plan, the 10-year plan, the same amount of money, unless there's a situation in my life that I have to change the repayment plan. I would choose the standard plan for 10 years and call it a day. But it doesn't always work that way. So for a graduate student, that's the best plan to choose if you want to get these babies paid up right away. However, if you're going for loan forgiveness, you cannot do the standard plan. Okay. So, but for me, that's the best plan. Get it done, pay them out, and forget it. And by the way, when you're paying your loans during any plan, if you double the payments, you have to call the servicer. Something happens when you double it, you confuse them. I have students who want to pay their loans, period, because they don't owe a lot, like $5,000 or something. They don't know what to do with the money. These people don't even want the grace period. They just want to pay. The servicer just looks at them like, what is this money for? Well, I want to pay my loans. So please contact them because they will not know what to do with your money. Okay. So the 10-year plan for me is the standard plan. Get it done. Same amount of money, nothing changes.
Thank you, Ms. Daisy.
You're welcome.
For that awesome presentation, as always.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Lawrence and Naila and Jeffrey. And if anybody needs anything, please contact me, okay?
Yes. And when you
Thank
contact Ms. Daisy, we know that financial aid can be stressing, but be nice when you reach out to her. We heard her say that she's working for you, but when you
That's
reach
right.
out, be nice.
No, they're always nice. Thank you, guys. You take care, okay?
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate
Pleasure.
you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You also.
Thank you, ma'am. So, Ms. Randy, you are up next.
Yes, Lawrence, what time do you need me to be done by?
Just need, if you could do 5 minutes, that'd be perfect.
Okay. All right, let me share my screen. Is this shared? Can you all see this? Here, let me put it in my fancy full screen. Okay, so I was asked to share my experience, so I'm not sharing as an expert, but from my experience, there are attainable unicorns out there for loan repayment. And I found in my archives of my personal email, as you can see, dated for October 2016, I was able to pay off all of my student loan debt. And in one foul swoop, once I became eligible, and this did not come out of my money, my parents' money, anybody's money, it came out of the federal government's money. And I just want to share with you how that was possible. Hold on, let me get back to stop sharing. All right, can you see this screen?
Yep.
Okay, so there is a program that will pay off your student loan debt up to $50,000 in some instances, up to $75,000 in some instances. But as a professor once told me, you can't get something for nothing. So the loan repayment involves a commitment on you for, and I've done some homework for you because it's different than when I did this. It looks like there are 3 different opportunities. This rural one was not something I was aware of, but this is something that's eligible for part-time and full-time LMSWs, as well as other professions. So I can't focus by not being able to see myself, but I just wanted to show you guys this screen so you're familiar to do your own homework afterwards. And I can put this information in the chat if you would like. So I'm going to stop sharing really quick. And I just want to say that I was qualified for that program. And what you have to do is you have to be at an approved site, and that website has actually a site lookup ability to look at sites available all over the country. And if you qualify, what happens is you get paid up front. It actually goes into your personal bank account. I was approved for all the loans I owed, which was $37,000. So I actually got $37,000 put into my personal bank account to pay off all my loans. And then I was on a 2-year commitment. So I will be honest, the 2-year commitment was a little stressful because if you, what's the word? If you break any of that contract, you do owe those back with penalties. And to be honest, everyone, I took a year off deciding to have a baby and get pregnant until I finished this 2-year contract. Some of the contract involves just that you have a limited number of days off you can take from your job site, and that you have to check in basically every, I think there was like a 6-month period, and you coordinate with your HR or whoever it is at the agency that has been determined to be the point person that's working with this loan forgiveness agency. And like I said, it has to be an approved site, so this should already be in place for you. So just know that there are opportunities out there for actually getting your loans completely paid off. So because you have to have your full licensure for this, just keep in mind what this could look like is 2 years to get your full licensure. You get your hours, you pass your licensing exam, you sign up for this program, you get qualified, you put in the application, you get approved, you actually literally get the loans, the money put into your personal account to pay off the loans, and then you have a contract period. Like I said, for me, it was a 2-year contract to get the $50,000, up to 50. And if you're part-time, you are also qualified for a smaller loan amount. But you also are on a commitment, which was, I think, a 3-year one. So keep this in mind. None of you are super close to being in the place where you are able to apply for this, but keep in mind when you are looking for jobs that you may want to go to a place that is an approved site where you have this opportunity is what the main thing is to kind of keep in mind when you get ready to start looking for jobs, or after you get your full licensure, if you want to find an agency that qualifies for this possible loan forgiveness program. And that's really it. Was that 5 minutes? I think so.
No, that's good, Randy. That's good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I see a question in here that says, is it only for MSW or can BSW use it as well?
I was looking that up for you because, again, I'm not an expert. I was just sharing my experience, but I did do a little quick homework on the website. I did not see that it was for BSWs. There are other professions. There's medical professions that qualify. I know there's a student on here who's been showing pictures of what looks like they're in a medical clinic. For some people, it looks like you can even have scholarship programs where you don't even have to take out loans. But no, for our purposes, it looked like LMSW, or you can be a counselor, or you can, I believe psychologists might also qualify, but it was for a master clinician level.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Randy, and thank you, Daisy, for your presentations and sharing your testimony on how you were able to get loans forgiven. That was a lot of valuable information. I'm hoping that this has been helpful so far for you all today. We're going to continue to move forward. Next, we're going to go to the licensure in the time of COVID by myself. So I'm going to get ready to share my screen. And all right. Hope you all can see that. Right? Yes. All right. So here we go. The licensing process. All right. So let's start right here. So how do you get licensed? We're going to go with the 3 E's plus fees. All right, the requirements. Of course, you're going to get educated. You're getting your education most likely right now. Well, first off, I want to kind of take a take a poll here. Who's on the call? Do we have BSW or MSW on this call? Can you just share? You could blurt it out, or you can share it in the chat. We want to know who's on this call. Okay. We got a mixture here, like mostly MSW. So we're going to talk about the licensing process for both MSW and BSW. And the first step is to, of course, be educated, your education. So you're getting that right now, or you already have it. The next step is your experience, okay? And then also your examination. So all right, we need you to mute that. Thank you. So your experience is going to come through, of course, the internship experience, but also after graduation, when you get your limited licensure and you're being supervised, you're getting your 4,000 hours. And then finally, it will be the examination, which happens after 2 full years of work experience, 4,000 hours. And then, of course, it's going to cost some money, right? And that's going to be, of course, the fees that you need to pay, the fees to apply for licensure and things like that. So what we're going to focus on is the process to obtain your LLBSW or your LLMSW in this session. All right, so the Michigan licenses for the health professions. Health professional license are an earned privilege that is granted by the state licensing and regulatory affairs, which is also called, they use the term LARA, requires responsibility to the public, mandates good moral character, which means the propensity of the person to serve the public in the licensed area in a fair and honest and open manner. All right, and these are the regulated professions that we have here in the state of Michigan that you can get licensed for. And as you see, social work is down here. And we're gonna learn more about that specifically. But first, the Michigan Public Health Code, practice of social work requirements. A licensee shall not perform an act, task, or function within the practice of social work unless he or she is trained to perform the act, task, or function. And the performance of the act, task, or function is consistent with the Code of Ethics for social work. So why become licensed? So it provides consumers with an assurance of the qualifications of a licensee along with the means of enforcement for the benefit of the public. It allows the consumer to know that you've been trained, you know what you're doing, and you're able to assist in whatever issue they may be trying to address. Okay, so disclosures required. When completing the application for licensure, you will need to disclose the following information. So if you have a felony conviction, a misdemeanor conviction resulting in imprisonment, a misdemeanor conviction involving illegal delivery, possession, use of alcohol or uncontrolled controlled substance, any loss of privileges. So if you were previously licensed and you lost your privileges for whatever reason, you need to report that. A criminal background check is required. Personal disqualifications, medical, mental inability, lack of good moral character needs to be disclosed. So you have to be honest when you're applying to the for licensure. All right, licenses for the health professions. Health professional licenses are an earned privilege, again, that is granted by the state. Requires responsibility to the public, mandates good character, which I've mentioned already before. So title protection, who can call themselves what? So you can only call yourself a social worker if you've been fully licensed, okay? You need to be fully licensed in order to call yourself or to operate as a social worker. Okay, so if you're not fully licensed, then you cannot operate as a social worker. Scope of practice, practice protection. You should only be performing the tasks that you are trained to perform, and that you have experience and have been trained to perform as well. So regulations, title and practice protection. Only individuals who are licensed can call themselves social workers. Tasks defined by the Public Health Code as social work have to be done by licensed social workers. You must be licensed to do certain tasks. And well, Michigan was one of the last states to actually require licenses, but this happened, was established in 2005. Okay. Scope of practice, new practitioners have limited license. So what most of you are gonna do if you're BSW or MSW, your first step is to become a limited license, either BSW or a limited license MSW. Okay. And just keep in mind, if you're a BSW and you plan on going to get your MSW right away after graduation, it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to become licensed as a limited license BSW, because you would only be probably going to school for a year or two before it's time for you to become a limited license MSW. But if you're planning on waiting a little bit and you want to practice as a limited license BSW, you can to earn your license BSW. Okay, you should only be getting your limited license if you plan on working. Now, only if you plan on working. Now, if you plan on taking some time off, maybe starting a family and not working as much, you don't want to go ahead and get limited license, because you have to renew. You have to renew your limited license every year, and you only get up to 6 times to renew. So if you get licensed, then you're not actually getting the hours that you need. Then you should not get your limited license right then. Wait until you're ready to work and you have found a licensed MSW or BSW that can supervise you. Okay. Now, after you become limited license and you acquire the hours that you need, which is for MSW is 4,000 hours, which is 2 years of full-time work experience. To become licensed, the next step is to become a licensed MSW with 2 designations. You can choose between clinical or macro. Okay. The initial license issued for one area or practice, but second area may be acquired with experience under supervision of a licensed MSW in that area. So you choose between clinical or macro. You can't do both at the same time, but you can choose one and then later on add the other. Okay, you can look at the rules, which is on the licensing website, to see how you can add a second one, and you could be pretty much licensed for both, and that's possible for you to do. All right, I'm gonna repeat this again just to make sure you understand. You need 4,000 hours with no more than 2,000 hours per year after your degree. Right, so you get it. The first step is to get your MSW, and then you get limited license. And once you get your limited license, you're getting your hours. You can earn no more than 2,000 hours a year. That's 40 hours a week. You can't do over that and have them go toward your 2,000 hours. You can't have 2 jobs and try to double them up or anything like that. The limited license is issued for 1 year within a 6-year renewal period. With 6-year renewal period. So again, you can renew your limited license up to 6 times. That's what this means right here. So you have to do it once every year. Okay. And you have to be supervised by a licensed MSW. A supervisor reviews and you meet with them 4 hours a month in a group or individual setting. At least 1 hour must be individualized. 50% of supervision to include individual contact with active work functions and applicant review. Okay. Again, now I want to go back here. For limited license, it's you have to renew every year, but for when you become actually licensed, you have to renew every 3 years. But you know, when you get to that, you'll have to address that. So I'm going to move forward. Again, here it is right here. So once you actually become licensed, you'll need to get relicensed or updated every 3 years, and you need to earn 45 CE hours approved by the Board of Continuing Education. If you don't, you could possibly get audited. You want to prevent that. All right, licensure in Michigan for a new graduate. So the social work licensing guide, I put a link in here for you all to have, is a licensing guide for the limited license BSW, licensed BSW, limited license MSW, and licensed MSW as well. Okay. What you're gonna need to do. So it used to be used to have to be done, you know, physically, like through the mail, but now they've put everything online. Okay. So what you do, so after you graduate with a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, you need to register for the MI Michigan Plus account online, and you can do that here. You scroll down to the middle of the page, it'll show you how to do it. I'm going to show it to you as well. You can apply for licensure here as well. After you've set up this account, this MI Plus account, you can apply for licensure. I'm actually going to share my screen and show you exactly how you can get to this web page, okay? So you can be able to do it for yourself. So I'm gonna stop sharing this PowerPoint because I don't believe there's anything else I want to share, except for the application fee is $43.20 for the limited license MSW and BSW. So keep that in mind. That's the fee that I was talking, that's the money that I was talking about. Okay, but I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna walk you through really, hopefully, quickly, what you can do to, all right, so check this out. So what you need to do is you can just type in Laura, right? And if you type in Laura, it'll pop up, the Michigan Department for Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. And they even have it right here. You want to go to health professional licensing, okay? But I want to show you a different way as well, the long way, just in case. So this is the page. And what you do, you scroll down and you type and you click on health professional licenses. All right, and then you scroll down some more and you scroll down to social work. Okay, so we're going to scroll down until we find social work. Boom. So once you get to social work, you can apply online right here. You just click apply online, okay? And then down here, you have licensing information. So you see, this is the limited license bachelor's of social work licensing guide, a limited master's social work licensing guide. And it tells you everything you need to know about this. Something else I want to show you all. One second. So let's just say if I click on the MSW, right? So this is a guide. It tells you what you need. So it's a little bit different than it was last year. They upped the requirements a little bit. So you need a criminal background check. After you have graduated and you've sent in all your and you've completed the application online, you're gonna get an email with criminal background check information of where you can get it done at. You go to that site, you get fingerprinted, and then they send it to the state automatically. and you'll be taken care of from there. But you must do the good moral character questions now. You also must do the human trafficking, okay? And this is beginning December 22nd, 2021, okay? Implicit bias as well, training, social security number, English proficiency. You need all of these in order to get that limited license, okay? But please check this out. I want to show you one more thing. Can y'all see this? Where it's some videos right here. Can y'all see that? Anybody
Yes.
there? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So this is the web page that you go to when it says Welcome MI Plus. You'll be able to find it, but it has a video on how you can set up your MI Plus account. And it'll walk you right through how to set it up so you'll be ready to do this online. And it has another video right here of how you can apply for your new licenses right here. And then here's the links right here. Register for your account, get your first license, okay? So, and then if you need to modify your license or if you need to renew your license, it's all right here. They put it online and it's done very nicely. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now, and I'm gonna open it up for questions. I know we have to get to our next speaker. She's very dynamic, and gotta protect her time. Jeff, y'all see any questions or?
We've been answering them, Randy and I, and anybody else who has jumped on to respond to the questions. So,
okay. So what I want to do is definitely email.
Jasmine Hendrick raised her hand. Kendrick, sorry. Jasmine,
Yep.
you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, yep. So I asked it in the chat box, but I just wanted to be specific. So I graduate next week and I want to start working preferably as soon as possible, but I know it probably won't be until at least August of 2022. Should I go ahead and start my limited licensing process now while I'm still looking for a job in the field, or do I wait? I just wanted to be sure about that.
Are you saying you're planning on starting to work August 2022?
That's the goal. I mean, because it depends with the job that I'm in now, and then, you know, whoever hires me, you know, going through all of that process. So that's what I wanted to know about. How soon should I start that limited license process if I'm not even working until at least, you know, August of 2022.
It may be, if you don't plan on, if you know for sure you're not going to be working until that time, you can wait until that time to actually apply, or even maybe the month before.
Okay.
And that could work out for you. But if you're going to be looking for, like, you can do it after you get hired if you want to.
Okay.
But if you want to plan ahead of time, you can do it maybe a month or so ahead of that date that you plan on working. Now, if you're going to be looking for jobs through that time, you probably will get hired somewhere before then. So you can have to play it by ear, but you don't have to get your limited license right now after you graduate. You can wait until you actually get the job that you want, and go from there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anwar said in the chat, some jobs require the license as a condition of hiring. So also keep that in mind when you are searching. Also, something to keep in mind as far as the licensing goes, you guys, the expiration is always in April. So if you do your application later in the year or after April, know that your license is going to expire that following April. So it expires and you renew every April. So keep that in mind also.
All right. So if you have any further questions, please just email us. You have our emails and things in the chat. I'll add that. And we're going to go ahead and move forward to our next presenter. We have an opening by Lisa O'Donnell, who will then introduce Juliet. who is a recent alumni from Wayne State University School of Social Work and is a limited licensed MSW and a clinical therapist. And she'll be providing information about the exam preparation process, and she may even have some opportunity to answer some questions as well, depending on how much time we have. So I'm going to go ahead and do the introduction video by Lisa. I'm going to share my screen to do that, and then Juliet will come on. So here we go. Can y'all see that? All right. Here we go. Play.
Hi, my name is Lisa O'Donnell, and I'm an assistant professor in the School of Social Work. Some of you may recognize me, or maybe you've taken a class of mine. I teach CBT and the DSM. First, I just want to thank you all for attending this Professional Development Day. It's such a wonderful opportunity with a lot of useful information, and I hope you're getting a lot out of it. I'm really sorry I couldn't make it today live, but I wanted to send a quick video saying hello and also introducing your next guest speaker. This is very exciting for me because Juliet Gustafson is a former student of our departments and of mine in particular. So I just want to give you a little bit of background on Juliet before you meet her. Juliet is a limited licensed social worker who received her MSW from Wayne State in 2020. She passed her LCSW licensing exam in November of 2020. Since graduation, she has worked as a children's home-based therapist in the east side of Detroit and now works as a clinical therapist as a private practice in Ypsilanti. She primarily works with children and adolescents who are part of the LGBTQ community. So Juliet is here to tell you about her experience taking the licensing exam, give you some really useful tips on preparing for it in terms of studying, mentally preparing for it, and what to expect when you take it. I personally find that when there is a stressful situation approaching, that certainty and clear expectations can really reduce stress levels as the event gets closer. So I hope you find that to be the case as well. So let's give Juliet a very warm welcome and thank her for being here today.
All right. Let's make sure Juliet has the ability to share a screen.
Yes. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Jeffrey, I think you have to give her make her co-host.
Okay,
There you go.
fantastic. All right. Let me pull this up here. 1 second. This. All right. Hello, everyone. So great to be here with you all today. I hope you're having a fantastic day filled with continued education and all of the good professional development info that I'm sure you've already received. So today I'm just going to talk to you a little bit more about the ASWB exam and some of the things that I found really helpful as I was studying for my exam. Since I took the LCSW exam, which is the licensed clinical social worker exam, I'm primarily going to be talking about that exam, but I will be able to answer some general questions about the LMSW exam as well as the LBSW exam. So today what I want to do is I'm going to go through my slides, then I will have a time to answer questions, and then if we have time at the end, we can go through a couple like practice questions. So buckle up. This will be really good. I hope you find some pieces of this to be useful for you as you start figuring out like what your licensing exam process will be like. Okay, so first of all, the clinical exam is the exam that most social workers who are interested in doing interpersonal practice take. It's a relatively newer exam. So before there was just the LMSW exam, which was like the same exam that everybody would take. But they found that people who go into clinical social work, obviously like there are many different types of social work. And if you're going to be specializing in any interpersonal social work, they want to make sure that you're competent in that area. So the clinical exam is 170 multiple choice questions. Around 150 of these questions are graded, and 20 questions, give or take, are practice questions. So you don't know if these questions are practice or if they're graded. So they're basically testing out questions for future exams. And one thing I did was, if I got a question that was hard, I reminded myself, there's a good chance that this question isn't even going to go towards my score. So I'm going to answer it, but I'm not going to get really worked up over it. So you have a 4-hour time limit on your exam, unless you get a different time accommodation. I was really nervous about the 4-hour time limit, and I'm pretty sure that the BSW exam as well as the MSW exam are also 4 hours. But one thing I found was I was able to take 2 breaks, and then I was able to check some of my answers, and then I still had 45 minutes when I finished. So for me, I found it to be plenty of time. So if time is something that you're concerned about, just know that when you're stressed, you will likely go a little bit faster than when you're practicing. So the exam, the clinical exam, has 3 types of questions. So 80% of the questions are all reasoning-based questions. So this will be, you'll get a big case study. It'll say you're a hospital social worker and a patient comes in with X, Y, and Z. And then they say, what should you do next? What is the most important thing to do? What should you do first? And you're just able to kind of use your clinical reasoning to figure out what the best answer would be. So as you study, you'll get really good at learning how to answer these questions based on what they're looking for. So a lot of times, what I found when I first started studying, that I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to memorize a bunch of facts because I thought it would be a lot of recall. So I was glad to know that the recall questions are actually the least common. So reasoning is around 80%. Then there are going to be some application questions, which is kind of like a mixture of reasoning and recall. So you'll get another case study, and then it'll be like, what is this client's diagnosis? So you have to know enough about some basic diagnostic information, but then you're also getting some case context. So then the least common is recall. So when you're studying, don't get too bogged down with remembering every single medication, every single nitty-gritty detail of each theory. So hopefully that takes a little bit of pressure off of you. And then the general goal of all of these exams, as well as the licensing process, is to determine if you are qualified to keep the public safe. So if you can look at these exams from that perspective, it can help you have a better lens for answering the questions. So no matter what, the first thing you're always trying to do is determine if your decision for your answer is going to keep someone safe or the public safe. So here are like some step-by-step guidelines for like how you actually go about scheduling your exam and taking your exam. So as you've heard tons about the licensing process, so you go through the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs to apply for your limited license. Once you receive your LLMSW or your LLBSW, now there is this requirement of working for the 4,000 hours. So you will complete your work, you'll get your hours. And once you are at that point, you can decide which exam you would like to take. So here I have the LCSW exam, which is the clinical exam, which is what most interpersonal social workers take. So all of my peers took this. Or the LMSW exam, which is more generalist. If you're interested in doing more policy or macro type social work, this is a great one. Or the LBSW exam, if you don't plan on doing any continued education and you want to become a fully licensed BSW social worker. So once you've decided which exam fits your needs, you can apply for accommodations. So it's really important that you remember that you have to get accommodations before you register for the exam. If you try and get accommodations afterwards, they will not grant you these. So get all of your ducks in a row, figure out who you need to contact for any accommodations. There's a form on the ASWB website that you have like a doctor fill out or whoever you need to fill it out. And then what you do is you apply to be eligible for whatever exam you want to take. So you pay a fee, I think it's like $50. You send in your limited license info and you send in your proof that you've received your supervised hours. And once they deem you fit to take your exam, you get a code and then you can schedule your exam. So one thing I learned was it's recommended to schedule your exam like 2 to 3 months out. This way you have enough time to get good studying in, but it's also not too much time. Sometimes if you give yourself too much time, you can like get too anxious about it, or you can study too much, or you can get really overwhelmed, or you can have the opposite where you're like, I have 6 months, I'm not going to think about this. And then 2 weeks before your exam, you're like, oh God, here we go. So once you have a testing date, you can make a study plan. So I'm going to talk on the next slide about different study resources that I found helpful, but there are numerous resources out there that you can use. So you'll make your study plan and then you will study and then you're going to pass your exam. It's going to be good. You guys got this. So here are some study resources that were helpful for me. Like I said, there are tons, so you can definitely find resources that fit your needs and your learning style and all of that. So for me, one thing that was really important was having one resource that I could do most of my planning and studying with. I didn't want to be reading a bunch of books and doing a bunch of different things. So I mostly use the Therapist Development Center. This is a website that has like study courses for all of the different like mental health, social work, counseling exams. So they have study courses for the LBSW course, LMSW, LCSW exam. And in these courses, you get practice tests with graded rationale. You get lectures of like the top topics and study tips. You get quizzes, you get flashcards, you get half practice tests, you get like contacting them, you can email them. And they have like a 90% pass rate for all of their exams for people who use this resource. So I did it. And the only thing about this resource that is a downside is it is rather expensive. It's around like $250 to pay for the course, which for a lot of people is like not an option. And I completely understand that. But if it is something that you feel would be helpful and like you have the means to do it, I really highly recommend it. If this is not something that you would like to do, there's also lots of free resources. So there's a social worker named Philip Luttrell. He has a YouTube and he does tons of exam prep. He does questions where he'll answer questions and explain the rationale for how to answer them. He has a bunch of different like acronyms for ways to answer these questions that he really swears by. So he's really great. There's also through the Wayne State Library, there are like textbooks for like studying. So there's the Social Work Masters study book, as well as the clinical study book, the exam guides. So they are on the WSU online library. So you can just download them and look at them at your own time. And one thing that I actually used these for was in the back of each book, there's a practice test. So even if you just take some of those questions and practice with them, that can be good, good to do, because if you go to the website for the ASWB, so the Association of Social Work Boards, they charge you for the practice tests, which it can still be a great resource if you want to do that. But if you want just some freebies, this is a good one. I also recommend looking at the Exam Candidate Handbook. This is a free downloadable document through the Association of Social Work Board. And it just has information about like what you should wear to the exam, what you should bring to the exam, how they fingerprint you, like all the process of like actually taking the exam, because they do have a lot of rules. And one of the main rules is like, unless you have accommodations, you can't have any food with you, like in your locker for your breaks. So like knowing that you're not going to be able to eat for 4 hours, and knowing that if you arrive like more than 5 minutes before your exam, you can't take it. Like it's really important to know all these details so you have the best chance of doing well. There are also apps that you can get for Android or iPhones that have free practice questions. So there's one called the LCSW Pocket Prep. And this app gives you a question of the day. The only issue with it is that after about 20 days, they run out of questions. And then they say, pay for our exclusive membership. And then you pay. I didn't pay. I also found this hard because you get one question a day, and if you get it right, you feel really good about yourself. And then if you get it wrong, you're like, well, shoot, I can't do anything because I got this one question wrong. So this could be good for you, maybe not. You can kind of decide. Another thing I did that was really helpful is my cohort and I, a couple of us, we had a study group. So we all scheduled our exams for within like a month period of each other. And we would meet every Saturday morning for like an hour and a half. And we would go over practice questions. We would talk about things that we were stressed about relating to the exam. We were able to like commiserate with each other, but then also hype each other up. And of my cohort, we all passed our exam on the first try. And it was a very like supportive experience. So if you have the opportunity to do like a study group, I recommend it. A few other things that I didn't put on this slide, but I recently learned that the Wayne State School of Social Work has purchased lots of practice tests with Rationale, and you can purchase these for a pretty good price. So if you're looking for more resources, you can also do that through this department, which is cool. And then I'm trying to think, there was something else I was trying to, I'm gonna let this person. There was something else that I was trying to remember about study resources, but I can't remember. So maybe it'll come to me. So now I'm gonna share some advice that I learned throughout my like study journey that was helpful for me. I just want to make sure, can everyone hear me okay? I'm looking at myself and I'm like kind of slow.
Oh, you're good.
Yes.
You're so good.
Okay, great. My camera is just weird then. So first of all, this is pretty straightforward, but make sure you read the full question and all of the answers before you select your answer. One thing that I often do is I read things really fast, and then I think I understand what they're asking. And then I actually get the question wrong because I was like answering it based on how I perceived it versus what it actually was. So make sure you're reading the question, especially if you're nervous when you're taking the exam. Also, if you don't know the answer, use process of elimination, because you can increase your odds of getting a correct answer, even if you don't know what it might be. One thing I did is I took a full practice exam wearing a mask, and I recreated the testing environment. So I didn't have any snacks. I had my phone away from me. I got like a drink of water halfway through, but that was all. And this was good because it helped me realize that I could take the test in the time limit. And also it was good because I wasn't like fidgeting with my mask. This was earlier in the pandemic though. So I guess since a lot of you have been doing school and work in masks, it might be different. And then I also heard that it was helpful to drive by the testing center like before the day of your exam. And so I did this the day before. I like drove to Dearborn. I found what parking lot I was going to go to. I found what door I was going to go in. And it gave me a great sense of like control. So then the day of the test, I wasn't stressed about where I was going to park and all of the other things that were stressful about the exam. And then with that, schedule your exam at a time that you function the best. So if you are someone who loves to sleep in, don't schedule your exam at 7 a.m. because you're not going to be your best self then. So do it at a time when you know you're going to do the best. Another thing is, like I said, be prepared to not be able to eat. So how it works is you get to the testing site you like surrender your belongings and they put them in a locker. Then you take your phone and you put it in like a sealed bag, and they put this like stamp on it so they can tell if you've tried to open it. Then when you go into the testing room, they like give you like a metal detector, and then they have you like stand in front of a camera and they like scan your hand to make sure it's you. And then you can only bring your ID in with you. And if you have like reading glasses, but then they like look at your glasses. So also just being ready to like not be able to drink water unless you have accommodations. You can get your water on your break, but other than that, you can't use it. One thing I did is I like brought a piece of like candy with me, and I had it in my locker, and on one of my water breaks, I just like ate a piece of chocolate. And for me, it gave me a nice little boost of sugar. But obviously it's technically not allowed, so you can decide if that's something that would feel good for you. And then obviously like eat a full meal before you go, and then take a piece of fruit with you, and then eat it like in your car, or eat something that's like natural sugar right before you go in to like give your brain an extra boost. So with all of this being said, I also wanted to let you all know that we talk about these exams a lot, and there's kind of a lot of pressure around all of these exams. But I really want to say that like of all the people that I was close with, all of the people that I knew who studied, who gave themselves a good time to actually study and not just like cram, they all passed on their first try. So there were like 7 of us. We all passed on our first try. And then there were a few of us who, a few of my colleagues did not pass on the first try. And it was mostly just because they were so busy with other things that they didn't have time to study. And then they took it again and they passed. So even if you don't pass the first time, it's really okay. You just have to wait 90 days and then you can do it again. But I want to say that there's a very good chance that you will all pass on your first try, especially now that we have this new rule. The recording is in progress. So in addition, because we have this new rule where you have to work for 2 years, that's 2 years of clinical judgment that you're going to have under your belt. And that's going to serve you really well when you take the exam. Oops. So now I'm going to open it up. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to open it up to questions.
We have a question in the chat from Jenna. Jenna asks, how many retakes are you allowed for the exam?
So in Michigan, so all of this kind of varies state to state, but in Michigan, there is no maximum amount. So you can do it as many times as you need.
Let's see, any other questions, you guys? How much do you have to pay for that exam every time you take it?
I believe it is $270. But if someone, what was it, 260?
60, yeah. Which, right, you want to make sure you're prepared. You don't want to have to retake that too many times.
Yes, please be mindful. We actually had a presentation a few months ago. We had one student who had taken it 10 times before they passed. So as many times as it takes so you can get it.
Also, I believe there is a 7-year limit for once you become limited license and you renew a certain amount of times. So you can renew it to 6 times, but after that, it's pretty much a 7-year limit.
Good to know.
So guys, before we let Ms. Juliet leave, do you guys have any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Juliet. We appreciate your presentation and your expertise in all of this.
I'm wondering if anyone would want me to go over a couple practice questions, or if that would feel, we can do that, or if anyone has other questions, I'm happy to answer questions about like being a recent graduate, licensing, the exam, any of these things. And yes, you can do your 4,000 hours part-time. Yeah, it just takes, it would be about 4 years. Great question.
So we have about 4 minutes before our next presentation. Juliet, please, you should go ahead and do a question, if that's okay with Lawrence
Correct.
and Aila.
Let's do it. Let me find where this is. Okay.
And this is questions are from the Therapist Development Center as well.
Yes. Also, give me 1 second. I have to pull it up again.
Juliet, while you're pulling it up, I'm gonna make share a perspective that I think might be helpful for folks, and that's keep in mind that ASWB hires people who put these exam questions together, and they call them item writers. And so when these folks create questions, they are asked to add resources that support the question and why an answer is correct and why it's not. So be mindful that the questions are based on what the best evidence is on how a question should be answered. So sometimes people say, well, I don't agree with how they asked that question because I wouldn't have done that. And where I work, we wouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. The question is written based on what evidence says is the best way to respond to a situation. So that's important to be mindful of.
Great point. Okay, I have it now. Okay. All right. So I believe this resource is through the Therapist Development Center, but this is a free resource. So it just has some study tips and then some sample questions. So if you all want to just go to the Therapist Development Center website, you can like peruse their free resources as well. And then they have 10 study tips. Okay, so why don't we do the first practice question? So can you all see, or would you like me, too much. Is that all right?
Perfect.
All right. Would you like me to read it out loud, or would everyone just like to read it to themselves?
You can read it out loud.
All right. A social worker sees a couple who describe frequent conflict and arguments. During a session, the wife tells the social worker that her husband never wants to talk about his feelings. The husband confirms this, but says that when he tries to express himself, his wife gets angry and yells at him. The wife jumps in and says loudly, "That's not true. He's always making things up about me." Then the husband says, "See," and crosses his arms, sitting in silence. The social worker should next, A, recommend that the husband and wife be seen individually. B, point out the communication pattern that just occurred. C, move the conversation to a topic that is less conflictual. Or D, teach the couple more effective communication techniques. So let's just all take a little bit and we'll think about it. And then if you want to put your answer in the chat, or if you want to unmute, and then we can go from there. All right, we'll take about 15 more seconds, I think. All right. So does anybody want to do a really courageous thing and share what your idea could be for the correct answer? I see the chat is blowing up, which is cool. Okay. So I see a couple B's, which would be point out the communication pattern. And then I see some D's, which would be teach the couple more effective communication techniques. Okay. Does anyone else have any other guesses before we? Okay, so someone said B, point out the communication pattern and then teach the couple more effective communication. Okay. Very cool. Does anyone want to explain the rationale? All right, so the correct answer for the first thing you should do would be B, which is point out the communication pattern that just occurred. So I'm going to go to the rationale and I will read that to you. So B is the best answer because the therapist should first help the couple be more aware of their existing communication patterns. A does not make sense because the problem is in the relationship. C avoids the problem for which they are being seen and is also counterproductive. And then D may be useful, but not until the clients are more aware of their current communication style. So it would probably be B, which is point out the pattern, and then it would be D, which could be doing some techniques. So good work. I'm going to stop my screen. How are you all? How does that make sense to all of you? Like, do you understand? Does it seem like a good answer? Or do you think it should have been something else? How are y'all feeling?
You guys can unmute at this time. Sorry.
All right, we got a couple thumbs up there.
Cool. Good work, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Juliet, for sharing your experience and just sharing your many tips about taking the exam. That was wonderful. So what we're going to do next is go to our next presenter, Kim Easley, who is the alumni coordinator. And she's going to talk about benefits of being part of the Alumni Association, but also about our social work mentor program, which deals with preparing for the licensure exam. It's been going on for about 1.5 years now, and many students, alumni, have went through this program and they found it successful, helpful for their success. So Kim, if you could go ahead and take it away. We're going to give you access to share your screen, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Lawrence. I appreciate it. I won't actually need to share my screen. What I'll do is I'll share the links with you so that you can be able to give them full view of the mentor site and how to keep in contact with the Alumni Association. So thanks again for the introduction. Hello, graduates, and congratulations to you all. Thank you for the path that you've chosen to protect and serve your community. I commend you for the value you will bring to the social work industry. So congratulations again. Please give yourself and each other a round of applause for making it through these tough, challenging times that we find ourselves in for the last year or two. And as mentioned, I work for the Office of Alumni Relations, and our role is to help transition graduates to successful career professionals. The Alumni Association is a non-dues-based resource organization with more than 265,000 alumni, which include approximately 13,000 social work alumni. That's why it's very important for you to keep in contact with us wherever you may land in your life so that we can share the many great things that's happening now and in the future. Again, I will share with Lawrence the contact information update link with you all so that you can make sure that we stay in contact with you. There are a number of alumni activities and events that help you stay connected with fellow alumni who can help assist you throughout your career plan. One specific program, as Lawrence mentioned, I like to share is the Social Work Licensure Mentor Program. It was put in place to aid and assist graduates to pass the licensure exam. Although the rules of timing have changed with the exam process, I do believe that the mentor program is a great way to stay connected with resources of the School of Social Work and what they can provide. The program helps guide exam seekers through understanding the exam process, guidance with high stakes exam test anxiety, creating a study groups, and exam planning. You can view the full details of the mentor program on the School of Social Work's website, which I'll again share the link with Lauren so that you can get prepared. Applications does open December 16th. So you'll be able to go on the website and read the memorandum of understanding about the social work program and complete a questionnaire, and the process starts from there. So I would like to thank you all for allowing me the time to share the details about the alumni relations, and I wish you all the very best. And should you have any questions about the mentor program or how to stay connected with the university, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly at kim.easley@wayne.edu. So if there's any questions I can answer about the mentor program or about alumni relations, please come off of mute or in the chat box and ask any questions you may have. Thank you.